there, my name is Brigitte Kaiser and I am the founder of the Earth Custodians movement. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing to our channel.
It's a myth that factory farms are feeding the world. They are jaw-droppingly wasteful and destructive.
Meat production in the U.S. is barreling ahead of consumer demand for it. According to a Wall Street Journal story, federal data is expected to show a record level of 2.5 billion pounds of beef, pork, and poultry, and turkey. It's all getting piled up in U.S. facilities. Now, while public demand for meat is growing, it's not growing fast enough to keep up with the production of hogs and chickens, and that leaves the U.S. meat industry reliant on exports. But new tariffs on U.S. pork products have made the goods more expensive in some.
Please do not hesitate to research the topic further because this presentation only offers a small fraction of the data available online. In this video, our channel mainly explores the economical and philosophical aspects of the issues. From a rational point of view, Earth Custodians recommend to cut down the meat intake drastically if either veganism or vegetarianism cannot be considered as options. Suffering aside, yes, 95% of the 70 billions of animals slaughtered globally and yearly is a huge issue because they undergo high stress levels throughout their lives, meaning that their meat is not suited for consumption due to premature spoilage linked to the stress hormone. As much as 70% of meat sold in stores is treated with carbon monoxide to keep the meat a deceptively fresh-looking red color.
Is called vertically integrated agriculture. It's a relatively new method of farming, but today it's responsible for 95% of the nearly 9 billion chickens produced in America each year. So how did we get here? In the early 20th century, chicken meat was merely a byproduct of egg production. The only chickens sold for meat were older hens who could no longer lay eggs. So it was a rare and expensive product, even though the meat would be tough and unpalatable by today's standards. But that changed rapidly after World War II. In 2012, the average American consumed 4 times as much chicken as they did in 1950. More people eating more chicken sounds great for farmers, right? Chicken went from a luxury product to the most commonly consumed meat in just a few decades.
One issue that no article ever raises is all the water needed to wipe down slaughterhouses open 24/7 to satisfy the market demand. Looks like a mega blood sacrifice to us. Massive meat production also requires antibiotics to keep the livestock alive till slaughter. As a result, mass farming has largely contributed to antibiotic resistance, which is a growing global health problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, antibiotic resistance is a huge storm and it's in our backyard. It's going to overcome us and be everywhere if we don't turn the tide. In the United States, we write 25 antibiotic prescriptions per 1,000 people. Now, that's 2.5 times the number that are prescribed in the Netherlands. We're not 2.5 times as sick as they are. We're just using antibiotics inappropriately.
Yes, it is the final confrontation because human gluttony is hurting the environment in a big way. And the same can be said about overfishing destroying ocean beds, the foundation of all marine life. However, the body does not need more than 3 ounces daily worth of animal proteins. Most people eat so much more than that today. There is no easy way to tell people what they have to do. Us custodians believe that it is the level of our consciousness and the connection with nature that ultimately dictate the diet. The higher consciousness, the less meat intake. The overall meat consumption globally rather describes us as a barbarian society.
Now, I love cows, but the biggest problem for antibiotic use is not our use of antibiotics in humans, it's in livestock and agriculture. So 70 to 80% of all the antibiotics that are used in this country are used for growth promotion and prophylaxis in animals. That's when you put antibiotics in the food and water of livestock to make them grow faster and to try to prevent infections. What that leads to is incredible increases in resistance. All of those animals then have antibiotic-resistant organisms. They pass them into the environment, and then they get passed on to fruits, to vegetables, to other animals and wildlife, and to you through your food. But since the 1980s, there are almost no new drugs being developed. There's incredible pressure against manufacturers, difficulties to do this. So the pipeline is dry. We don't have any new antibiotics. So
That there hasn't been any major drug discovery since the 80s is pretty astounding and could cause a world market crash if the scandal was aired on TV broadcast. Like it or not, meat eating is becoming a problem for everyone on the planet. According to worldwatch.org, the standard diet of a person in the US requires 4,200 gallons of water per day for animal drinking, irrigation of crops, processing, washing, cooking, etc., while a person on a vegan diet requires only 300 gallons a day. Indeed, we stand at crossroads. Health problems are much more linked to the environment rather than bad genes, as many so-called experts would like us to believe. The number of animals slaughtered versus human populations is more or less 8 times greater. And then, how do we feed these animals when half of the world population is already starving? Hello, dystopian factory farming. The price of cheap meat has dire consequences. Something is terribly wrong with the way we treat animals and other human beings as well. Both sides mirror one another. The principle of correspondence, a cosmic law establishing that what happens on a level of consciousness also translates on another level of awareness. Everything is interconnected. Humans now suffer as much as the 70 billion animals they kill, and not only those who starve,
most processing companies such as Tönnies supply meat markets and retailers. Meat has become a cheap product in Germany, with 500-gram portions of mince, such as these, being sold for €2 at discount supermarkets. But how can meat be produced so inexpensively? 20 kilometers away, farmer Andreas Westermeyer is fattening pigs.
I prefer not to do the math because it'd just depress me. We don't make much.
Generate instant
10
gratification. And it does.
Probably not
Because
that
it is
much.
mass
Once you figure
hypnosis,
in all the labor that
mass
goes into running a
programming.
place like this, it's less than that. When we deduct the cost of the animals, the barn, buildings, feed, we end up with about €15. It's not much, but we do it because we love it, not to make money.
15 euros for a pig is little more than the cost of a cinema ticket. The farmer hopes to see emerging countries buying more German meat, which would help push up prices. 1 in 2 workers are temporary staff, mostly from Romania and Bulgaria. We ask what they earn per hour. This worker says he earns 5 euros net, which translates to a monthly net average of 1,000 euros.
Considering the madness and irrationality of competition, wisdom tells us that the more a system is balanced, the less waste it has. And us custodians call the 2 billion worth of meat surplus waste because eventually they will have to be destroyed to prevent meat prices from plummeting. We believe that meat producers will rather destroy their surpluses to save their feedlots operations. The same way as they did when they decided to slaughter 500,000 dairy cows to keep milk price high, as reported by the Huffington Post. They actually may already do it. It wouldn't be surprising. And further, what are the electric running costs to keep all that meat frozen? It has to amount to tens of thousands of dollars per day paid by and for farm subsidies, in turn paid by the taxpayers. The conclusion is obvious. Profit-seeking has literally damaged everything we can think of, and unless we begin to eat consciously and scientifically, nothing will ever change. The nature of reality is both amazing and also kind of scary at once, because perceptions determine the meaning we give it. Though perceptions are what they are, mere perceptions. Because every individual is unique, perceptions levels are different. The trick here is to realize that perceptions are fractals of a much bigger picture. It is thus up to each of us to bring our piece of the puzzle onto the table. Every time we refuse to do that, we create shocks to the system. This is the very first thing elementary school students should be taught about society, to plant the seeds of peaceful behaviors. Amazing because when awakened, one inherently envisions the limitless human potential and pursues the quest for truth. Kinda scary because not seeking to become awakened to the natural laws bring about various dire karmic lessons. The idea of necessary evil is the result of a pervasive Darwinian mindset that led us to the brink. How long can it last? The right move is to quit our mindless materialistic habits and begin to contribute to society in meaningful ways so that we can generate abundance and establish a money-free system. There is not enough money anymore to resolve the issues, as profit-seeking, selfishness, and self-indulgence are the prime